Hello, everybody. I figured I would come on a little early just to test out the audio, see how everything is doing, give people some time to start watching, and make sure that the audio is well. Clifton is here. If you can hear me and see me, can you give a thumbs up or a... Oh, is there a brain emoji? Can you do a brain emoji? That sounds fun. Just to make sure you hear me well. Okay, you liked the thingy. I don't know if that means you can hear me, but so I'm gonna give a few more people time to join in. Please share this. I'm really excited about this. And I guess I can start talking about why I wanted to do this. So for those of you who don't know, I am a licensed clinical social worker, and so my main passion is doing therapy. I currently work in a group practice, and I do therapy, individual therapy, couples therapy. I work with adolescents. The youngest that I work with is 12, I believe. So in doing that work, hey everybody that's joining, I see y'all. In doing that work, I've really found that there's a lot of things that people aren't talking about, especially within the African American community, but just all over. Therapy is still a really big stigma, and unfortunately, it's been like that way for so long. You can hear me, okay, great. So yeah, I am here to start breaking down those stigmas of mental health and mental health issues. I think that it's so important to talk about it, and so I wanted to create a safe space to be able to talk about it. So we did a poll, and healthy boundaries got the most votes, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you have any questions, I can see all of the comments as they're coming up, so feel free to chime in at any point. I'd really love this to be a discussion, and not just me talking at you. I love hearing about other people's experiences. I'm hoping to have some guest speakers in the future. There are a lot of really great topics that I want to talk about, and so I'm just ready to start talking, and hopefully you guys are ready to listen and join in the conversation. So healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries make sure that you are physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally safe. So these are the things that you put in place just to make sure that you are stable, right? Because so many times we feel like we can give so much of ourselves, and then people can kind of tiptoe into our little bubble that we create. And so boundaries help to make sure that we don't allow people to overstep those lines that we need to have in place. If you have a lack of boundaries, that may indicate maybe not having a strong sense of identity or even being enmeshed with somebody else, because we can sometimes get attached to, be it a family member, a spouse, or even just a friend, and we become so joined with what they think and what they feel that we lose our sense of identity. But if we have healthy boundaries in place, then we won't lose those that sense of identity that we need. So what's a toxic relationship? I know we've all heard about it. It can come in many different forms. I looked up online what the definition of toxic is. So toxic is something harmful to your health or lethal if consumed in sufficient quantities. So when we think about relationships, when we think about friendships, and we think about even our family members, what can be considered toxic is anything that affects our health. So that could be our mental health, it could be our emotional health, of course it could be our physical health, even our spiritual health. If there's anything that's being a detriment to you, then that is something that is toxic. And so you have to make sure to get rid of that toxicity. So how do I know that something is toxic? Because a lot of times we're like, okay, well, there's no abuse going on. There's, I don't feel like, they're not physically harming me. Maybe they're not even emotionally harming me. How do I know if it's toxic or not? You might feel sad or down around them. You have feelings of not really wanting to see them. So if you're dreading going to this person's house or when this person is going to call, it might be a toxic relationship. If you find yourself caring for their needs instead of your own. So not having healthy boundaries in place means that you're putting others extensively above yourself. It's not bad to put yourself first or put others, or it's not bad rather to put others before yourself. But when that becomes a pattern and you're never taking care of yourself because you're always caring for the other person's emotions and their needs, then that's when it can get really toxic, right? Ayana said they can also be really controlling. So absolutely. And that goes to kind of the next point where you feel unlike yourself. You can't be the real you. You have to be the you that that person needs you to be. And that then can become a controlling relationship because you're not being the most genuine self that you could be. You also will feel very drained. So if you are in that person's company, or as soon as you leave that person's company and you just feel like all of your energy has been zapped out, you have absolutely nothing left to give, that might be a sign that it's a toxic relationship because you just have nothing left. You've given so much of yourself. And so, again, this can be in different areas. This could be with family, this could be with friends, or this could be in intimate relationships. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what those look like in those different areas, but then also what are some good ways that we can set boundaries up. So before I head on into that, can anyone identify or anybody want to volunteer what are some boundaries that they have in place, or what are some boundaries that they think are important to have in place when it comes to either family relationships, friends, or intimate relationships? And I'll kind of give you guys a second to post in the comments. While you guys are typing on it. So one of the boundaries I have for me, and it's so funny, and I was telling someone this earlier, it seems like a very small boundary, but it's really effective for me in knowing my needs. So in the morning, I'm not a morning person whatsoever. And my husband gets up very, very early in the morning to go to work. And so for me, I'm like, I can't talk that early in the morning. Even if I roll over or you think I'm awake, like if he talks to me, I'm just like, hey, I really need you to not wake me up, because if I wake up, then I'm usually going to be up. I can't get back to sleep very easily. And so I feel my whole day can get thrown off. And so that was a boundary that I set, to saying like, I need to prioritize being rested and all of that. Like, I love you, doesn't change anything, but I need my sleep. And so because of that, that's a boundary that I put in place, right? Saying that, okay, if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, don't talk to me. Usually he says bye when he's leaving, and I give him a little 2-tap. That means I love you, be safe, talk to you later. Usually around like maybe 8, 9 o'clock. Learning to say no. Yeah, so Kim says learning to say no. Absolutely. That is one of the things that I find, especially when I'm working with clients who have issues with boundaries, saying no is one of the hardest things. And it's for a lot of different reasons, right? Some of us, we're just not really socialized to say no. One of the things I've seen, especially when it comes to women, we are often so it's encouraged for us to always say yes and be givers and be nurturers and say, okay, what, even though I know I'm a little stretched thin, how can I do this, right? And so being able to say no, then people kind of get surprised and they're like, well, what do you mean no? Or, why not? And then we almost feel that pressure, right? And so men can definitely feel it too, of always feeling like they have to say no, have to say yes. And so in those moments, establishing those healthy boundaries is going to help us to be able to say no, because we're not saying that what the other person needs isn't important. We're just saying that, okay, I can't be my best self if I'm overextended. And so that's setting a good boundary. So I ran across this article on Psych Central. It's from last year. It's called 10 Ways to Build and Preserve Better Boundaries. And so these are some really good things, and there could be 20 ways, but these are just 10 things that they pointed out that I thought really aligned with kind of my belief of like healthy boundaries and how are some good ways to put them in place. So number 1 is name your limits. Oh, let me see what Diana said. So boundaries as far as when we communicate about disagreements, do not attack the other person, attack the issue, try to always maintain respect for one another. I love that. Yeah. So you're not attacking the person, but you're attacking the issue. So let's say if somebody is saying, I really don't like it when you call me after 11 p.m. And so instead of saying, hey, you're this, you're that, and you just, you don't do this and you don't do that, just say, it really makes me feel unhappy when you're doing this. I teach that all the time in like couples counseling, is instead of, you know, blaming the other person and attacking the other person, you're saying, okay, this is how I'm feeling when this is happening. So when you do this, I feel, rather than you're always doing this or you're always that, then, you know, definitely. Marissa said, I told my best friend, whoever says their problem first is who gets to cry. Someone has to be up when the other is down. Okay, that's a good thing too, but why not? Why can't you both cry? I think definitely both having time for that self-expression is important, but also respecting one another's space, right? So if you're upset about an issue, I'm not gonna then come in and kind of emotionally monopolize that, right? Because that can be manipulative, right? If I'm bringing you an issue and then all of a sudden it turns around and now I'm the one who's consoling you. So that's a good boundary too, right? I like that. I never thought about it like that, to say, okay, look, if you're bringing me the problem, then I'm going to deal with it with you, and then we're going to work through it. And then after that, if I now have a problem, we can work through it together. So I actually like that. I had never really thought about it that way, but that was really good, Marissa. Maddie says self-awareness. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things, is like knowing what you need and knowing how to ask for what you need, right? Kim, yes, I will post them. So in the comments, once the broadcast is over, I will post all of these 10 things that are on here. So number one is name your limits. So being able to say, this is what I can do and this is what I cannot do. And it sounds really simple, but that's something that can be really, really difficult, right? I know if someone asked me, okay, what are your top 5 limits that you set in your relationships? I would have to think about it. I don't know right offhand. I'd be like, you know, oh, well, maybe this or maybe that. But being able to express that is really important. Number 2 is tune into your feelings. So again, that's knowing what makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel good. I know for me, one of the things I had to do in my friendships was I have to shut my phone down after a certain amount of time, because I'm like, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I have a job, you know, I do all of these different things. So for me to protect that time and to make it sacred, I had to say, okay, unless it's an emergency, after 11 o'clock, I'm going to get drained if I'm dealing with all of these things. Another good thing is we talked about like that boundaries and how that works with family. So tuning into your feelings. I've had a lot of really intense family situations where I felt like, you know, this is toxic, and I would feel so almost obligated to be around them, because I'm like, this is family, I'm supposed to be around them, but I didn't feel good. And so I had to start setting those boundaries of saying, you know what, maybe I can't come to every family gathering. Maybe I can't, you know, go to 4th of July and Memorial Day and this and that. Maybe I just need to pick one family gathering a year, because if I don't, every time that I'm around them, if I'm feeling drained, you know, then that's not healthy for me. It doesn't create a healthy environment. So I had to tune into my feelings and be able to say, you know what, this isn't good for me. And rather than just going because I'm supposed to, I'm setting this boundary of saying, okay, this is what I need, and this is what I need to be the best version of myself. The third one is to be direct. Another really hard thing, right? It sounds really simple, like just be direct, but how many people know it's so hard, especially when you really care about the person that you're talking to and you're trying to create the boundary with. It can be hard to be direct because you kind of want to tiptoe around it. You want to just say like, oh, well, you know, maybe I might need this, you know. And so really learning how to be direct and say, okay, hey, this is what I need. And again, a lot of times we might feel like we're being selfish, but to a certain degree, we have to be selfish sometimes, right? We have to prioritize our mental health, our emotional health, because if we don't, we're not going to be good for those that are around us. Give yourself permission. So giving yourselves, Kim says, I'm all up in her Kool-Aid. Girl, I'm all in mine too. Like, this is stuff that I have dealt with personally, and so that's why it's a subject that I'm really, really passionate about, because I know what it's like to not have those healthy boundaries in place and how I felt not having them. And so being able to create them for myself and just being able to teach other people why they're so important. So giving yourself permission to have these boundaries, because again, we might feel that obligation to say, okay, well, they've been doing it for so long, or, I've played this role for so long. A lot of times we take on these roles of, okay, I'm the caretaker, I'm the nurturer, I'm the friend that everybody can come to. But then it's like, okay, if we don't give ourselves permission to say, hey, you know what, I know that you come to me all the time, but I can't handle this, or I can only handle this so much, or, like I said, maybe setting that time limit, saying, you can't call me after 10 p.m. with this because I got to shut it down in my own house. So giving yourself that permission to set those boundaries, that's a sign of self-respect, and that's prioritizing yourself. Number 5 is practicing self-awareness. So again, that's just knowing, it's constantly doing those scans about, okay, what am I feeling, and what do I feel is really necessary for me to be mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually safe? Like, how am I creating that safe space? Do I feel unsafe in some areas? And it's constantly doing those checks. I like to try to, I love journaling. I don't do it as much as I would like to, but journaling, I just got this new planner called a passion planner. My sister bought it for me, and it creates little places in the journal. So at the end of the month, you can journal and you can reflect on the month and all of that. And it's so good because you're seeing, okay, what did I aim to do? What stopped me from doing it? So maybe if I had a goal to do something in April, but I was so busy overextending myself in all these other areas, I'll know, okay, in May, I need to make more time for myself to accomplish my own goals, because I was there for everyone else, but maybe I wasn't there enough for myself. Number 6 is consider your past and your present. So again, that's looking at the past. That's saying, okay, what are all of these patterns that I might have seen? So if I see that every time I'm around this person, or every time I'm in these situations, I'm drained, or every time I've done this and this is what happened. And so you have to look at your past, because that's definitely affecting your present. And just because you've been doing something for years and years and years doesn't mean that you need to keep doing it, especially if it's not serving you, and especially if it's causing you to not be your genuine self. That's so good. Maddie said you have a calendar and you do the same, jotting down the highs and lows of the day. Absolutely. I like to call those gratitude journals. I encourage a lot of my clients to do that. And it doesn't have to be pages and pages of things. You could write 3 things that you're grateful for every single day. It could be, I'm grateful. I like this today, as I was coming in the house, I saw some tulips blooming. Those are one of my favorite flowers. And I was like, man, I'm so grateful for that. So whatever it is, it's being able to say, okay, man, that's great. So I love that. Make self-care a priority. There are so many times that people just say that self-care, they think is taking a bath or going on a vacation or all that. Like, self-care doesn't have to be this huge gesture that you're doing. Self-care could simply just be, I'm going to go to bed on time. When I said, I wanted to go to bed by 11 o'clock today, and then making sure you do that. Or it could be just saying, you know what, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb for an hour because I just need some me time. Self-care is not necessarily going to a spa. It's just whatever you need to do to put you in a positive headspace. That looks different for everybody. For some people it might be, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm having my morning worship time. Whatever that looks like, making sure that you do that, it's going to be what fills your love cup. I love the idea of everybody has a love cup, and everybody has things that you out of it, and then you have it poured back into you, right? We'll talk more about that when we go into communication, if we get into a conversation about communication and love languages, because talking in each other's love language is one of the best ways to fill the love cup of yourself, of your spouse, of your children, even your parents. Like, any relationship that you have, everyone has a love language, and when you speak in each other's love languages, that's what helps to fill those love cups. So that's a whole nother conversation. But making self-care a priority. Number 8 is seeking support. So setting boundaries can be hard, and sometimes you are not able to set the boundaries because you're so enmeshed in the situation, and you might not be able to see clearly. So having a good solid circle around you is really, really important, because they can see things that you might not be able to see. So if you have, a friend or a spouse or a loved one or someone who can say, like, okay, hey, this doesn't look so good. I feel like you're really drained around this person and you're not even noticing it. So having someone be able to do that, even if you go to therapy and you have a counselor and you're saying, okay, I want to set boundaries, but how do I set boundaries? And so those are some really great ways that you can seek support. Talking about it, just to whoever you feel is trustworthy. Yeah, Marissa, I like that too, saying that, praying and meditate before you leave out. Absolutely. It's just making sure that you're going out because we do so much, right? We're all busy. Like, we're constantly going, especially millennials, like, because most of us are what? Entrepreneurs. We got 3, 4 jobs, on top of taking care of our families and all of these different things. And so you really have to prioritize taking care of yourself and taking those moments to yourself. And again, it doesn't have to be taking a 2-hour bath. It could just be 5 minutes to yourself in the morning. And that's really, really important. Number 9 is be assertive. So we already know we need to be direct and say, this is what I need. But being assertive with it, we are, passionate about the things that are really important to us. So we should be really important to ourselves, right? So being assertive and making sure that we're strong and telling people, okay, this is what I need, making this boundary and then sticking to the boundary. You might have to tell them the boundary again and again, but stay firm with it. That's really the best way to get your point across, but then make sure that they're respecting the boundaries, because there will be some people who test your boundaries. I think Ayana was saying earlier that that most people, family violates it the most. So if you don't set those boundaries, then absolutely you're going to have people who try to cross them all the time. I'll give you guys another example. I love my father, but I live in the building that he owns. And so, we have it's our family in the building. We, go freely, pretty much from apartment to apartment, but my father is a smoker. I don't smoke. And so I said, when you cross the doors into my house, you cannot smoke. How many times have I said that? Probably a million, but I'm always, and I would be really, really tentative at first, because I'm just kind of like, oh, this is his building, like, I'm just here, this is his. But I have to be like, no, this is your space. He's allowing you to have this space. This is my home. So I have to set this boundary of saying, I don't want you to smoke in my house. I don't smoke. I don't want my house to smell like smoke. I don't want smoke around my child. And so I have to constantly set that boundary over and over. Did it take time? Yes. Did I have to be assertive? Yes. Did I have to keep saying it over? Yeah, I did. But he doesn't smoke in the house anymore. What he will do, he might go right at that doorway and holding it out there or something, but he's not going to bring it into the house, because I've made sure that that is a boundary that I need respected. Otherwise, I'm going to say something about it. And he probably just got tired of me fussing, but oh well, at least my boundaries are being respected, right? And then number 10 is to start small. You don't have to go and talk to all of your friends tomorrow and say, okay, this is my list of boundaries. This is what I need to do. Start small. So it might just mean that I need to start making a list of, these are the places where I'm noticing maybe I don't have good boundaries. So maybe, I'm allowing my mom to dictate how I spend my money every day, and she wants me to go and buy things for her that I don't think are healthy. So no, I don't want to do that anymore. So now let me figure out, how can I do this, and how can I say it in a respectful way to say that, to figure that out and to establish that boundary. It might mean that, you have people who don't allow you to get self-care. You have people who are constantly pulling you in every different direction, and they don't give you that time to breathe. You might say, hey, I love you. I got to go. I really need to get home and do some things. And they're like, no, I just need you to stay and do one more thing. They're not respecting your boundaries, because they're not respecting that you might have things that you might need to prioritize that aren't at their house right now. So it's being able to start small. I really encourage everybody to make a list of what your boundaries are. 1 cup of coffee. I like that, Kim. Yep. If that's what you need in the morning, just saying, okay, this is your cup of coffee to yourself before everybody in the house wakes up and do all this. Make sure you take care of yourself. So we talked a little bit earlier about different ways that this might come up in different relationships. So the first one is family. We talked a little bit about family. A lot of times I'll see that family will often violate these boundaries because it's kind of like, well, we're family. This is what you're supposed to do. And so it's almost that obligation that you feel. And so it's being able to talk and say, I know that we've been doing this for the past 15, 20 years, but maybe we could do this differently, or maybe we could do this, or, for me, everyone who knows me knows that I'm like an extroverted introvert. I do not like big crowds. I don't like loud music. I don't like, so my family had a ladies' night out in Georgia. and they wanted me to go to this party. It was like a basement party. It was going to be a ton, super crowded, and I was just like, y'all, I cannot go. Like, this is not what I want to do. I don't enjoy being in large crowds. I don't enjoy, especially people I don't know. Like, I don't want to do it. They gave me heck. I mean, they were just like, you don't want to do with this? You don't want to hang out? And I'm just like, nope. Sorry. If you had said we're going to go to like a small place with like, 25 people, cool. But if not, I was just like, and thankfully, they respected that boundary. Like, they teased me and they joked with me, but they knew that that was a boundary that I had to state, because I don't feel comfortable in those spaces. I don't feel like I can be my true self in those spaces. So I could have easily gone, but I would have been miserable the whole time. I probably would have had a little bit of resentment, like, y'all made me go, and y'all knew I didn't want to go. Y'all didn't really, weren't really caring about how I was feeling. But because I set that boundary and they respected that boundary, then that made me enjoy myself even more, because I was like, man, like, okay, they actually listened to me and they cared about what I was saying. So that was really great. Yeah, Maddie, that's good. You talk about putting boundaries in place now that you're back in school. Absolutely. And it's tough. It's really tough. When I was in school, I was working full time and I was in cosmetology school in the evenings, and I had like no time to myself. There were so many times that I had to say, no, I can't do this. No, I can't do this. And it was hard. Like, I was in school for 2 years and working full time, and I was just like, but when I was tired, I was tired. And I had to make those, times to say, okay, you know what, guys, I just can't do it. I really want to be there, but I can't. And it was hard. And now that that time in my life is over, I can do a little bit more. But had I not had those boundaries in place, then I would have been exhausted. I would have been drained. And there's no way that I would have been able to, with time to get to full-time work in school, it is a press. So anybody who is doing that right now, I'm praying for y'all. I respect y'all, because I know the struggle, and it's hard, especially when you probably also have a family and stuff too. So it makes a huge difference making sure that you prioritize yourself. What about friends? So a lot of times our friends, that's our closest relationship, maybe besides a spouse or, family. Like, we talk to our friends all the time. And so setting those boundaries. One thing that was important, I think, to bring up, and I find that it is very common in therapy, is that people ask about friendships, both like same-sex friendships and then opposite sex friendships. And so setting those boundaries. The same-sex friendship. So a lot of times it can be really easy to want to be there for all of our friends, right? We want to be that shoulder that they lean on. We want to make sure that we are constantly seen as like, a good friend, but it's also being able to set those boundaries and saying, maybe I can't deal with it right now, or giving them time to vent, but then you also need somebody that can vent to you, that you can vent to as well. Opposite sex friendships. So those can be really tricky, especially like if you're single and when you're married. Those can be really tricky, because it's also making sure you have healthy boundaries in place. How much time you guys spend together, how much time you talk on the phone, different things, because you also want to make sure that you are establishing healthy boundaries, because if you are not ready to be in a relationship and you're spending too much time together, that can sometimes cause too much attachment, and then you don't have healthy boundaries, and those boundaries can get they can get slippery. So always making sure that you want to have some boundaries. And so that might look like saying, okay, we're not gonna text after a certain time, or we're not going to hang out, or if we hang out, we're gonna hang out in a group. That's really good. I did that a lot. And I teach a lot of my teens that I do counseling with, before you get into a committed relationship, or before you do that, go into a group setting, because that way you're able to set those boundaries without creating too heavy of an attachment, but you can still get to know someone. And same, if you're married, making sure you have healthy boundaries. There are plenty of married women and men who have friends that are the opposite sex, but it's making sure that you have those healthy boundaries of saying that, okay, because I respect my marriage, because I respect, my husband or my wife, I want to make sure that, I'm not going to text you all hours of the night. I'm not going to call, or, if we're talking on the phone, we're not going to talk for 2-3 hours at a time. We don't need to talk for that much time, unless it's a 3-way conversation. So making sure that you have those boundaries in place is really important. in relationships. So for some people, they might say, okay, there are certain things that I want to do in my dating relationship that I don't want to do in my marriage, that I'm going to wait to marriage, so making sure that for me and my husband were really intent on saying, okay, but when we were dating, we tried to leave each other's house at a certain time. We made sure that, we didn't, spend too much time together. We still had boundaries where we're saying, okay, like I need to be with my friends, you need to be with your friends. We need to make sure that we're creating these healthy boundaries. And even in marriage, we have boundaries. I know that, if I'm upset, I might not be able to talk about it right then. I might need to process through it first. And so my boundary is saying, hey, I really need space to process what I'm going through and what I'm feeling before we talk about it. I don't want to feel pressured to have to talk about it right then and there because I might need time to process through it. And so we, having that communication and saying, okay, cool. Like, I respect that boundary. We'll talk about it later. Not saying we're never going to talk about it, but just say, okay, hey, instead of, I know you want to talk about it right now. Can we talk about it in an hour? Can we talk about it tomorrow? And being able to set those boundaries. So that's really good. And yeah, so those are pretty much what I had to say. If you guys have any questions, any comments, I've been reading these on the side. And yes, Kim, that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to talking about, singles and dating. So if you guys are interested, again, I want to talk about topics that you guys are interested in. I got a lot of really, really great suggestions. So I have a whole list of things. I'll be doing another poll probably this weekend for you guys to vote on what the next topic will be. And space is a good boundary. So what happens when you never talk about it? So if you never talk about it, again, that's where we kind of see where those unhealthy habits will come into place, because number one, there's a lot of resentment that comes because you feel that people are constantly encroaching upon those boundaries, but you don't talk about it. So the other person is not going to know what you need unless you're able to express it. So that kind of goes back to those 10 things to being able to preserve those boundaries, is being direct and being assertive, telling the other person what you need, talking about it and saying, this is how you can love me better. This is how I'll feel supported by you, is if you do this. Instead of going into attack mode and saying, I'm just so angry, you don't do this, being able to say, hey, when this isn't happening, I feel really disrespected, or I feel really unsupported, and kind of framing it like that, that really helps. But definitely talking about it is so important. I'm so glad you guys think this is great. I'm absolutely excited to continue talking about these. This is now a time, like if you have any questions, even if it's not related to healthy boundaries, if there were any questions just like therapy wise, even if you want to know just like what therapy looks like. I know a lot of people, we hear about therapy, we don't necessarily know what it looks like or what that might mean, or if you have to like have a diagnosis to participate in it or anything like that. You don't. So you can just come. I tell people it's kind of like the oil checks that you do for your car. You do maintenance and stuff. You can do the same thing emotionally for yourself. Therapy, you don't have to be in crisis to be in therapy. You just might need some maintenance. So you might need to say, okay, look, I know that maybe I could be performing at a better level. And so this is what I want to do, is go and talk to someone, get some support. You might want to work through some stuff in your childhood, but I can guarantee you, like, not most of the people that come to me for therapy, they're not telling me all of their childhood trauma in the first meeting. They're saying, look, I'm having issues right now. I'm not getting along with my husband. I'm not getting along with my parents and stuff. And so that might have roots in childhood trauma, but it's not necessarily that you have to come and spill your whole soul on the couch. I have a lot of people who don't sit on the couch. They might like to sit in the chair. And so really, therapy is just a great way to go and to kind of get an unbiased view, because a lot of times when we talk to other people that we know and that we're close with, they're biased, or they might want to say things in a certain way so as not to hurt us, whereas that therapist might be able to be a little bit more direct, or they might be able to be a little more honest because they don't really know you like that. So they're just looking at you in an objective way saying, hey, I just want to help you. I am in a Christian counseling practice, and so I love that, because not only am I able to counsel people, but for those who want it, I'm able to then come and use the Bible and just the help of the Holy Spirit with that. And that creates a whole nother level of counseling, of being able to say, okay, I don't know you, but God knows you. And so we're going to invite him into this session to figure out whatever is going on. Marissa, I definitely will, suggest, like, if you've been wanting to do family counseling, talk to them. I know a lot of great resources. So if you guys ever have any questions, then definitely, you know, I can link you to some resources. Leslie said, how many people can be seen by you? So do you mean like just if I'm seeing someone, or do you mean just in general, like my caseload? If you mean like for sessions, I do family sessions as well. So I can see individuals, I see couples, I also can see like entire families. So there might be a mom, dad, their son, and a sister that wants to come in. And so we might have a time where the whole family comes in. So it really just depends. If you mean like people seen just as far as caseload, I think I just opened up some new slots on my schedule, so I still have openings, so they've just been like kind of filling my schedule up. But I only work 4 days a week because that was one of my boundaries that I put in place. I wanted to be able to pick my daughter up from school, so I said, nope, I am not going to work on Fridays because I need to be able to pick my daughter up from school. On top of the fact, you guys know I also do hair, so usually I'm in the salon on the weekends, but I said I didn't want to overextend myself, so I only work 4 days in the counseling office. And you guys, I'm so excited. I'm glad that you guys are so excited. Do you guys have any more questions? Kind of give a moment. And like I said, it doesn't have to necessarily be related to this topic. It could be anything just that's been on your mind. Kind of see this as like, oh, I've always wanted to ask a therapist this. So here is your chance. Where can people see me at? So like I said, I am with Chicago Christian Counseling Center, and I am at the Orland Park office and the Evergreen Park office. I'm also adding a day. I'm not sure exactly if that's going to be in Orland or if that's going to be at another office, but for right now, I'm just at those 2 offices. And that's where I'm at. If you need more information or if you want to look at the different therapists that are at that center, then Chicago Christian Counseling, I think it's Chicago Christian Counseling Center.org or just ChicagoChristianCounseling.org. I will post that when I post these. How can people try to get on my caseload? So I will be very transparent. I usually try not to counsel people that I know very intimately just because it can be a conflict of interest. But if there are people that I don't know very well and we don't have a already established relationship, you can call Chicago Christian Counseling. You can directly request to get onto my caseload. I know that there is a little bit of a wait period just because they're trying to get me that extra day in a new office. But as soon, you know, when I have openings, then they are able to add new people, and I am accepting new clients, but I know they are working through the wait list right now. Thank you for that question, Leslie. Any other questions? Oh, wait, I see 2 new comments. Oh, Latondra, you're awesome. Thank you. So yeah, so if you see Latondra posted a link, like I said, I will also link to that website for Chicago Christian Counseling Center in the comments. I will also make sure that I list the 10 things, the 10 ways to build and preserve better boundaries. So I'll make sure that I put that in the comments as well. Again, I'm planning to do this every week on Thursdays. It will probably be around this time frame, just because this gives people time to like settle in, get home. If you aren't able to watch the live broadcast after it is over, you'll be able to see it on replay on my page. I will make sure that I will keep it public and you can share it. Again, if you have any topics that you really want me to cover, please send them to me. If you want to be anonymous, you can message them to me. You don't have to post them on the page. And yeah, we'll just be voting. I'm going to do polls so that you guys feel like you're picking the topics rather than just me picking them. And I'm really excited about this. I love that you just set a boundary for us. Yes, absolutely. So yes, I will make sure that I share all that info. Oh, good. Latondra did. So the website that Latondra just shared, ChicagoChristianCounseling.org. That's where you can find all of the information, all of the therapists on that page. It tells a little bit about their specialties because some people do deal with children under 12. 12 is my limit. So if you know people who need counseling for children 12 and under, there's a lot of different resources on there. You can see all of the pictures of the therapists, a little bit of their experience and all of that. So really excited about that. Oh, competition between women. Ooh, that is a good one, Tandra. I like that. I'm going to write that down. So I'm excited for that. Thank you, Leslie. So that is all for me today. If you guys have any questions or if you need any resources, please feel free to reach out to me and or message me with any personal questions that you might have, maybe that you didn't want to post in the broadcast. And other than that, I'm looking forward to talking with you guys again next week. So thank you so much for joining in, and I will talk to you guys soon.